Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about the actual benefits of dumbbells versus one of the largest misconceptions of the benefits of dumbbells. And that is that the only real benefit we get out of dumbbells, if we're using both sides at the same time, would be the fact that we can get a longer range of motion on them out of many exercises. Now, the other could be in the case of they might allow you to only work one side of the body at a time if you're so inclined to do that. And for some exercises, there's some extra core stability training and things. But for general training, that's actually not a good idea. You're not going to actually get the best total training response doing unilateral training, specifically on a dumbbell. Now, one of the big problems we have there is that people will say, well, they train both sides of the body evenly, therefore it will create better balance left to right or unilateral imbalance over, say, a barbell or other big movements. And that's just simply not true. In fact, biomechanically speaking, that's impossible. And if anything, if your form is bad enough with any barbell version of an exercise, if your form is bad enough with any barbell version of an exercise to create an imbalance, you will actually exacerbate that problem with dumbbells. You're already loaded evenly with a barbell. Okay, perfect example. Look at all these different chest exercises I'm doing. All right, I have a 45-pound bar. On all of those 45-pound bars, the majority of the weight, even on the bar itself, is outside of my hands. Okay, the collars usually weigh more than the center. The only exception would be this axle bar I have. It's pretty evenly distributed all the way through. But on a standard barbell, I don't care whether it's an Olympic bar or that football bar, there is more weight on the ends than in the middle. And then you load plates on it on top of it. And I want people to think that through. If your hands are evenly spaced on a barbell, there's going to be very, very, very little weight loading difference left to right. Okay? You can't just compensate easily. And when you do compensate and you use compensatory strength to cheat and let one side go higher than the other, okay, that can happen due to a strength imbalance that already exists or really bad form not staying tight enough, right? That can happen. But what are you going to do when you get dumbbells? Aren't you going to do the same thing? And that's the fascinating thing. You'll see people who legitimately believe that, and then you watch them try to chest press a pair of dumbbells. Watch anybody who has a compensatory strength issue and they start getting grindy, they start getting near failure. Notice they shift a little bit. Their stronger side goes an inch lower than their weak side. Okay? Watch them do it. And when you do that on the most challenging reps, the ones that give the real training response, what happens? Right, because if you're doing a 10 rep set, do you think the first 3 or 4 reps do any stimulation? No. So even if you maintain perfect form on a 10 rep set with the first 7, and then you start to see that strong side compensate on the last 3, those last 3 are the ones that gave the most training response. You trained your strong side more than your weak side with the dumbbells. It doesn't work. People have to learn to maintain tighter form. Okay, and I would postulate that because the dumbbells allow for more instability and they allow you to compensate even more because one hand can drift further in or out, right? At least the barbell fixes you into a position to where you can see the whole barbell shifting, right? It locks you in tighter. The actual form degradation on unilateral with dumbbells tends to be worse because of the instability they create. You see people do it with dumbbell curls standing. You'll notice that the arm moves in or out more or less with one side more than the other. Okay, they compensate. Tighter form. More balanced training, that's how you achieve it. And then people say, well, I could just do one arm or leg at a time. Do you think they're going to be perfect? Watch yourself film yourself from multiple angles doing your one-legged arm or leg exercises thinking you're going to fully balance things out. And watch how much you compensate for the weak side. Okay. Your solution is, if you're starting to develop imbalances, you're going to have to find exercises that help with that. And I'm not saying doing some of the unilateral stuff might not help, like a one-legged deadlift or a split squat, because it might. but don't rely on it to fix it, because you still might compensate just as bad for the weak side. You're going to have to learn to find methods that force you basically to use both sides evenly. How about wider stance movements? Wide stance, box squats, sumo deadlifts. Those wide stance movements force you to load both sides more evenly. It's harder to cheat. Okay, it's harder to cheat. That's at least for the lower body. The upper body, it's an issue of learning to stay tighter. Okay, there is no unilateral advantage to dumbbells. And if there is, it's only when you train them one side at a time. But keep in mind, you end up using a lot more balance and you get less training effect. It's still going to be a smaller training response oftentimes in the target muscles than had you just used a bigger movement. Just so you're trying to fine tune the balance. It's a secondary exercise. You should never train that way as a primary movement. So what are the advantages of dumbbells? Dumbbells have real advantages. It's range of motion. Okay, let's say on the bench press, you need to develop your pecs more from a stretch reflex. Now, I could argue that dips more effective than dumbbells for that, but dips are bigger, heavier movement, harder to recover from. All right, a dumbbell chest press allows you a little more variation in grip spacing. It probably allows you to potentially, in some cases, find a more natural groove, use a lighter weight, a little easier on recovery. Dips are still going to stimulate more potential growth, but they're less versatile of a tool. They're a little bit less versatile of a tool. And in some cases, they might have a higher risk of injury for shoulder injury and stuff for some people. Dumbbells, on the other hand, they allow you to get a deeper stretch at the bottom. You can get a better stretch reflex. Problem is, when people use the dumbbells, what do? Half the time they half rep them. So now they're forced to use a lighter weight than a barbell, and then they're doing a partial rep and just wasting time stabilizing it. Okay. The advantage of dumbbells there is that you can get a deeper stretch. Well, how about the incline curl for biceps? There you go. That's another example. Look at the range of motion you get. Well, a barbell, you can't do that. The barbell would be passing through your body. Okay? They allow you to get a longer range of motion. They allow you to get a longer range of motion. Now, some people jump on, what about rows? No, they don't allow for a longer range of motion on that. A better form in using a strict pin leg row is better than a one-arm dumbbell row. Now, is the dumbbell potentially okay for that if you need to do some chest-supported stuff where the bar could be hitting the bench that you're using for chest support and you don't have a chest-supported machine and you need a break from beating up your posterior chain for a workout? Okay, it makes sense there. But in the case of lat muscles, no, the dumbbell doesn't have more range of motion. Nobody's rowing higher than their stomach on a full bent over correct pin leg row, and you get the same range at the bottom. So in that case, no, but a lot of shoulders, biceps, things like that, yeah. Do they allow us to take weaker lifters who maybe aren't quite strong enough to do a barbell box squat and have them clean them up to their shoulders to do squats? You bet. Can you take someone who has a really weak core who's rebuilding after a lot of muscle wasting and have them do some one-arm overhead presses with a dumbbell? You bet. In fact, I do that with some of my guys who are eating disorder recovery clients. So dumbbells have their place, but it's generally going to be range of motion. It's usually going to be a range of motion issue. Or in the case of, again, some smaller movements, we're saving the shoulder joints. Because again, if someone is not really strong and maybe we do have some fatigued shoulders, it's sitting the bar in a position can be a problem for their upper back. Maybe you have a really, really underweight person who's lost a lot of muscle tissue, who they don't even have a proper shelf to put the bar on their back to do a box squat. Well, it makes sense to have them clean dumbbells up. Right? They don't have the position to do that. Or we have someone whose shoulders are fatigued and you want them to do lunges, or you want them to do step-ups, one-legged step-ups onto a box. Okay, it might make sense for them to use some dumbbells for that. Mainly because, again, shoulders get fatigued from doing large amounts of stuff. I mean, I'm aware of that. I do not only squatting, but I do very, very high volumes of good mornings. And a lot of people, they don't have the stamina in their shoulders to handle all of that. So maybe some of those leg exercises, a dumbbell makes more sense if we're doing very high weights with lighter reps as a secondary movement. Okay, dumbbells have their place and they're valuable tools. But generally speaking, it's only because of barbell placement or barbell movement patterns being an issue for a specific goal in which you would then use a dumbbell. And the most obvious being things like chest presses, curls, because again, you don't have to worry about the bar trying to pass through your body. Certain curls, you can get better stretches, better ranges of motion. They make sense for a lot of those things. Some belt exercises, but they do not give more even loading left to right. That is absolutely false, and if anything, they're worse than a barbell for it. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.